right, can you hear me in the back?
Yeah.
All right. So since Carlos established the precedent, I guess we're all going to have to talk without the mic now.
Bring it.
But the one thing that Carlos, Levy, and I all have in common is we all served in the United States military. So one of the things you learn to do fairly early on is use your command voice when you're actually addressing the audience. So to make sure I haven't missed any, are there any other veterans in the room by any chance besides Spears? Thank you. So the coldest I've ever been in my entire life was in February of 1993. I had just reported to the USS Dubuque, LPD-A, in Guam. I told you I was cold, but I told you I reported in Guam. Yes, I met the ship in Guam, and then we immediately transited to South Korea. We went there to participate in a combined exercise with the South Korean Navy and Marine Corps that was called Operation Team Spirit. When I talk about it was the coldest I ever was, let me give you the particulars. Have you guys ever seen, watching television, those orange exposure suits that people are wearing when they're on the deck of a ship and it's somewhere that's cold?
Yeah.
I was wearing my orange exposure suit inside. Right? Long way from 8 Mile, Alabama. So for those of you who I have not had the opportunity to meet directly, my name is Robert Kennedy Jr. I'm from Pritchard, Alabama, 8 Mile, Alabama to be precise, and I am the Democratic nominee to become the U.S. Representative for Alabama's first congressional district. My wife's telling me to adjust myself.
Listen to her.
Everything she says is right. So, Aquilin and I had the opportunity to follow Bradley Byrne around as he did his town hall meetings. He did 12 town hall meetings throughout the congressional district. Aquilin and I had the opportunity to attend 10 of those 12 meetings. Now, when we talk to people about this, they ask us, why is it that we went to so many of them? There are really just a few reasons. The first is we wanted to hear exactly what he had to say without any filters, straight from his mouth to our ears. In addition to that, we wanted to hear the questions that the audience was asking him to express the concerns that they had in our little piece of heaven here in Southwest Alabama. And last but in no wise least, we wanted to have the opportunity outside of the formal session to talk to those constituents directly, to start the process of introducing ourselves so that they knew who it was that we were and what it was that we stood for. Bradley Byrne presented under the theme of Better Off Now. He presented that as a statement. The statement had two components. He said we were better off now due to stronger national security, and that we were better off now based upon a stronger economy. So as he told that story over and over again throughout the congressional district, from Salipta at the north end in Clark County, all the way down to Spanish Fort in Baldwin County, the question that kept running through my mind was a permutation on his theme. Rather than presenting it as a statement, what was running through my head was a question. Are we really better off now? So we were sitting around talking about this at one of our volunteer meetings where Bill was in the room, who's in the back. Bill is one of the volunteers who's helped with events. Kim is in the back. Kim is one of the volunteers who's been helping with fundraising. And Levy is one of my longest supporters, who was one person with me standing in the rain when we were putting flyers on cars as a two-person canvassing team. And Levy said, what is the problem that exists right outside your door? You see, when Bradley Byrne talked about the concept of being better off now, it was at the macro level. But when I was thinking about the problem right outside my door, what I realized, the answer to the question of are you better off now really depends. And it just depends on three things. It depends on where you live, it depends on where you work, and it depends on where you get your health care. So let me tell you the problems that exist in this congressional district right outside the door. If you live in 8 Mile and experienced a mercaptan spill in 2008, if you've gone through 10 years of nosebleeds and headaches and respiratory problems, if you had to coordinate with the Center for Fair Housing and file a federal housing administration lawsuit to prove that our economically depressed community in 8 Mile, Alabama was treated differently than an economically affluent community in Southern California, if you have to do that, are you really better off now? I live in 8 Mile. I went to Indian Springs Elementary School. When I did book reports, I did them at the Mitchell branch of the Pritchard Public Library. I played football for Indian Springs at the park. I can hear Blunt High School when they're practicing the drum line. I live in the community in a house that my parents built. For them, it was the American dream. Can you imagine folks in that community and how they feel with the prospect of mercaptan still being in the soil? Are you better off now? It depends on where you work. If you are an employee who worked at Toys R Us or Babies R Us right there on Airport Boulevard, and you lost your job, when you walked away with no severance package to bridge the gap to your next economic opportunity, when you think about the fact that there were executives at Toys R Us corporate headquarters who walked away with millions of dollars when you didn't walk away with a thing, are you really better off now? I was a Toys R Us kid growing up. My favorite toy was Lego. I used to build spaceships out of Lego. Now that's no advocacy for a Space Force. But I really enjoyed doing that as a child. As an adult, I had the opportunity to work for Toys R Us corporate headquarters in Wayne, New Jersey. One of my favorite things to do as a director of marketing was to create programs up in that New York area and then come home to Mobile, walk into a Toys R Us or a Babies R Us, and actually see those programs executed on the ground. If you lost your job at Toys R Us here in Mobile, Alabama, are you really better off now? As I continue to think about this issue of healthcare, it literally comes up over and over and over again. So, if you happen to be a military veteran, you served for 14 years, 4 years at the Naval Academy, 9 years on active duty, and 1 year in the Drilling Reserve. If you had 15 years of employee-sponsored health care, the last 3 covering both you and your lovely wife. And if through a set of circumstances you lost your health care, you would think that you could go down to the Veterans Administration, to the clinic, at the old